Now, for most of us, our experimental period is usually 2, maybe 4 years in life. But wouldn't it be great if you could just do whatever the hell you wanted for 10, 15, 20 years? And when you get into some really hot water, poof, it just all goes away. Shout out to the Biden family, man. They've done well. Now, look, we all agree that the National Football League is the greatest league in the world, right? But what's number two? And if it wasn't for the NCAA, I would definitely say college football. Now, look, college football delivers every Saturday. But because of the NCAA, it's like, man, they do some of the dumbest things. Now, they released the standings for the rankings going into championship weekend. And for the most part, I think we all agree, if you are obviously fans of a Miami team, you are definitely not happy with how things have turned out. If you're a fan of Ole Miss, I don't think you're happy with how things turned out. I think if you're South Carolina, you're not happy with how things turned out. And if you hear some of the comments made by the chair of the committee, I don't know if you are really thrilled by some of the things that they said as well, because he did say, I think in an interview on Tuesday night, that, you know, because all the data points have been collected for a lot of these teams that are ranked into the 12-team college football playoffs, that we're not, you know, there's not enough data points for them to change the standings. Now, who's in, who's out after championship weekend, I think is pretty much cemented. Now, the only caveat is probably that Alabama team that could be on their way out depending on what happens on championship weekend. But is there a pathway for the Miami Hurricanes team to get in? I don't know. I don't believe that there is, but I could be wrong in that. I just don't see a path for them to get in. I think that the seedings could definitely change. I think Oregon, if they lose in their championship game, they could not be the number one seed going into the playoffs. But again, because of how college football is run and everything that goes around it's kind of tough to say that that's the second best league in the world. But it's, you know, college football, again, the product on the field, I think it delivers every weekend, and it certainly has this year for sure. Could you imagine if this year they had to choose just 4 teams to make the playoffs? That would be absurd. So I'm so happy that they've gone to this 12 team. This year would have been really tough to pick just 4. I'm really happy that they've gone to 12. Now, obviously, there's, you know, it's a never-ending cycle. There's going to be a lot of people that are unhappy with the decisions made. There's going to be some people that say, you know, you're not setting the right precedents for them going forward. But again, you have coaches pleading their case on X. You have coaches making their bids on different platforms and things like that, because that's what you got to do. And, you know, it's a little bit unfortunate because you're leaving kind of your fate and your livelihood in the hands of 13 people making a decision. But, you know, like, you have to deliver on the field if you want to stay in, and I completely understand that as well. Unfortunately, Miami didn't do that. The U didn't do that. So, you know, it is what it is. I think that some teams have done enough, and they have a natural gripe. I think if you are Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, I think you have a true gripe. But at the same time, like, who are you taking out to put Ole Miss in? Because some of their losses have been worse. A lot of their wins have been better than some of the other teams' wins. But it's, you know, how do you balance that? So it's a never revolving thing, and I think that it's tough to say that. The reason why I asked that question is this, right? I've always said I think the NBA is the second best league in the world. Is that the case this year, though? Like, really, if we just look at it, is the NBA the second best league in the world this year? No, man. I don't know what it is. But the NBA kind of sucks this year. It does, dude. It just, like, it's not as exciting. It's not as good. Half of the things, you know, we don't know what's going on. It's tougher to follow. Half the league is injured on IR. We don't know what team is good yet. And we're like, 20-some games in? Like, you know, it's hard to to kind of like wrap our heads around like what's actually happening in the NBA. It's so tough to tell what's going to take place. And it's just like the juice and like the storylines and the star power and all the things that we loved about the NBA. It's kind of lost its like, it's lost its flavor. It just has, man. And I know, like, let's just take the Lakers, for example. I think they got off to a pretty good start. Now the last 8, 9, 10 games have been kind of a struggle. They lost by 41 to Miami. They give up, 9 pretty much open threes to Tyler Hero, right? Like, so, and then, people on the internet and people with platforms are talking about, oh, is this LeBron's last year? He's not having fun, this, that, and the other. It looks like Father Time's caught up to him. But nobody's addressing the fact that this guy is still, doing better than his quote-unquote MVP, Anthony Davis, who, I understand everybody is struggling on that team, but there's no excuse for you to be also shooting 25% from the field. Like, why are we holding LeBron at 42 at the same standard as we're holding Anthony Davis, who y'all told me is an MVP frontrunner? Now that conversation's obviously gone muted, but for rightfully so, because again, he is, for some reason, when they lose, he also doesn't show up. So that, again, I don't know why we haven't addressed that as well. Now, coming into this year, I said this on this show as well. The Los Angeles Lakers are not a good basketball team. Right, they have pieces for sure. They're going to be competitive. I think they have, JJ's done a pretty good job. I like a lot of the things that he says because I think he has a pulse on what his team is and what it needs. But again, you don't have the personnel. Imagine how hard it is to win when you just don't have the personnel, especially in the Western Conference. The East is a whole nother animal because it's so terrible, right? But like in the Western Conference, like you might be fighting for a play-in spot. Right, and like, what philosophy are they winning with? Right, and by that I mean like, some teams win by shooting threes. They're going to be a good shooting team, or they're going to be a good inside team. They're going to be a good defensive team. They're going to play outside in, right? Or they're going to have some level of identity that they know that is going to travel with them and is going to show up every night. But the Lakers are still trying to find that. And I'll give you an example. I said the Clippers are, I think, a pretty good team coming into this year without Kawhi as well, because I think they have changed the identity of what that team is, right? Ty Lue has done this job where, they have brought in some defensive specialists. So they know that their defense is going to be good everywhere they go. And they can still rely on that. And when you get, relative shooting from a Norman Powell and a James Harden, you're going to be a pretty good team. Right, and then Kawhi comes back and we'll see what they are then. But in terms of like being competitive in the West, because they have some level of identity, they can build on that. And they are going to be a defensive team, right? And the Lakers just don't have that, right? They drafted well with Dalton Connect. I thought that he went really late. If you watched him at Tennessee, you know what I'm talking about. You thought that, a lot of people did think that he was a top 10 talent. I certainly did. I think a lot of people, when you asked them pre-draft that he was going to go 17, I think they would have been really shocked because a lot of people did have him evaluated a little bit higher than that. But again, he ends up in LA. I think he shot the ball well. He's been their only real bright spot. LeBron, again, like when you watch LeBron play, he still played well. Yeah, he hasn't shot the ball relatively well, but like neither has anybody else on his team that are half of his age. So what's going on? Right? Anthony Davis can't make anything. He's shooting like 20% as well. So like the games that they do bad, right? AD's also not showing up. So what is it? Right? Is this your MVP candidate? This is the guy you want to pass the baton to? Well, let him get it then. Look, I'm not here saying that, I'm a hater of AD or nah, man. I'm just saying I don't love the narrative around him. I don't think that he's a top 5 talent or a top 5 player. I like look at the talent in the NBA. The skill level in the NBA is so insane. So for us to say that this is a guy that can take them over the hump, let's say LeBron retires and you have to build around Anthony Davis, like, come on, man, give me a damn break. Give me a damn break, dude. I don't know if he has that in him. I don't know if he wants it. That's the other thing with AD. That's the other thing, man. You know how good he is in certain spots in the low block and this, that, but like he doesn't demand the ball. And that's the most frustrating thing about the Lakers, man. It's the most frustrating thing because for years we've talked about how LeBron wants to pass the baton on, but like nobody there to take it. He ain't there to take it, man. So when you get, a Tyler Hero on you in the post, you're going to spot up and shoot threes instead of, backing them down in the post. And like, I don't want to sound like a Charles Barkley, a Shaq, and a Stephen A, but like, that's just the reality of basketball. You have to take advantage of your matchups. And I feel like, especially when you're not shooting the ball as well as you have in the past, it's like, I have to be able to get some buckets inside. And I just feel like, he hasn't done enough for us to think that, he is a top 5 player, a top 5, and I just keep hearing that every year when he has like a stretch of good 5 games. It's like, oh, he's back to, come on, man, give me a break. And the other thing is this, is he a great defender? He is an elite defender, but like there are spots where he isn't. And that's because, you have to play him so much, right? And here's my other thing, right? I think as NBA fans, we all know this, right? We all heard the reports about how Anthony Davis doesn't like playing the center. He likes playing with a center, right? But they haven't addressed that. Why have they not brought in like a rim running big at the center position and keep AD at the 4? We just keep putting. So is this like the best use of his talents? Right, because you're asking him to do things that he's uncomfortable of doing. And when you look at the A Disney championship in the bubble, right, like he played the 4. JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard ran the 5 as rim running bigs. And their defense was so elite that year because of that reason. And now, you're losing by 40 points to a Miami team that, it's not that good. Let's be honest. The night before, they get thrashed by the Toronto Raptors, who also are not very good. Right? Like, you're losing to mediocre teams in bad fashions. So, I don't know where they go from here. I just feel like the NBA is in a weird spot. Right? The New Orleans Pelicans haven't had anybody. They haven't had anybody, man. Jordan Hawkins is out. Herb Jones missed some games. Like, CJ missed games. Zion, Brandon Ingram, everybody's missing games for them. People are looking at their record like, yo, what happened in New Orleans? Dude, they have nobody's playing on, they have the G League players playing on their team right now. So, I don't know what's happening with the NBA. I feel like everybody's hurt. The appeal isn't the same. The Boston Celtics look head and shoulders better than everybody else. The Thunder look really good. But, again, the expectations for them are pretty high as well. But I just feel like, the storylines, all of that, the appeal, it's just not the same anymore. What happened to the league that we loved so much because of the star power, this, that, and the other? It's just like, man, come on, man. Again, this is the most talented league in the world. Like, I can't stress this enough, how much I love football. Right? But if you look at the NBA and the skill level in the NBA, it is insane, dude. It is absolutely absurd. What these individuals are able to do as professional athletes and beyond is like absurd, And like for somebody that, has played basketball, right? I'm not saying at any like high level. I'm just saying like to do some of the things that they do and be so good at it, it's like the level of appreciation I have for the skill in the NBA is crazy. But like what happened to, the storylines and the star power, it's just not the same. And I don't know how it gets fixed. I'm not sure where it needs to go. I also think that the NFL hasn't helped because they've taken away Christmas games. They've taken away other things, right? And, the value of the NFL just continues to get better and better every year. So it's like it's drawing so much attention away from the NBA, which I assume Roger Goodell really wanted to do. And it is what it is. But I just feel like, man, they have to, NBA has to get back on track, man, because right now it's just not what it, just doesn't have the allure that it once had. So I hope it does. Let's get into some NFL talk. Right, obviously going into week, what are we in? 13, 14? Week 13 in the week 14 in the NFL. Thursday night football is a huge game. Huge game in the context of the entire season. I think everybody in the NFC, probably everybody in the league, is going to be watching this game. Thursday night football, Green Bay at Detroit. Look, this obviously, division game. It's a huge rival game. The Detroit Lions are only favored by 3 at home. Now, is that because they're injured on defense, or do the sportsbooks know something else that we don't? I'm not sure what exactly it is, but if I was looking at this objectively, I think that, going into Detroit, I think the Packers, yes, they've been on a high. Obviously, Jordan hasn't turned the ball over in the last 3 games. They've played really well. They've done some things that I think has helped on their defensive end position, that has helped their defensive secondary not give up as many points as well. But that Detroit offensive line is still healthy. I think if Ragnow doesn't play, it's gonna be a little bit different. But I think that if they protect Jared Goff, that play action game is still gonna be very good. I've gone back and forth. Obviously, I like the Packers more as a team. I think that they are truly, a team that can win the NFC this year. I know that is kind of, in a way, it's a little bit absurd, but I do think that they have that ability. I do. I think that they have that ability over Detroit. I do, man. And I've said this all year. I think that if the Detroit Lions don't win, it's going to be because of Jared Goff. It just is. I know that you can talk about the injuries and they weren't healthy at the right time, this, that, and the other. But if you ask anybody in the NFC West what Jared Goff really is, they'll tell you, man. And I know that he's done really well with Ben Johnson and MCDC, but he still does things that I'm just like, come on, man. Like, come on, dude. So because of that, I feel like there's still some hurdles that he needs to cross. But that being said, that team has so many great, like, that offensive line, man, is very good. And the way that they're able to run the ball is going to carry them for a long time. I think that eventually, if Jared Goff makes one mistake, the game's kind of curtains for them. That's just really what it is, because you're also banged up on defense, right? Now, my thing is this. I think that a lot of people are making more than it needs to be made about their defensive injuries. Yes, they're banged up, this, that. If you want to be a championship team, you have to have defensive plug-and-play players. Yes, you've lost some high-profile individuals. Obviously, you're not going to replace an Aiden Hutchinson. You're not going to replace a Brandon Branch. But, like, Alex Anzalone, you're not going to replace these cats, but you can definitely have impact still if you have the right scheme. And I think if you notice, in the last couple of games that Detroit has played, like, Aaron Glenn has done a really good job with that defense, regardless of the injury. So I think it's a little bit overplayed that, because of their injuries, they can't overcome the hurdles that they've had. I'm not really buying into that. I think that is still a really good defense, and I think that they're still going to give Jordan a lot of fits. But if Jordan doesn't turn the ball over, and even if he does, the Packers still have a shot. My thing is, if the Lions turn the ball over, is their shot a little bit different? Let's move on to some of the other games happening on Sunday. Or actually, let's go back to some of the things that happened in week 13, right? Like, I've been on this show saying, the Bears are the Bears, right? They make some of the moves that we only expect either the Jets to make or the Chicago Bears to make. And I've said this for a long time. The Chicago Bears haven't made 2 correct decisions in a row in a long time. Let's hope that this move that they made after what happened on Thanksgiving at Detroit, right? Let's hope that firing your head coach was the right decision. And a part of me thinks that it was. And again, I've been on this show saying, like, look, I'm not down with this, like, letting your head coach go midway through the year. This is an exception. And the only reason I say that is because, everybody saw the way that game ended. I truly believe it will be very tough to address professional athletes after what took place. I honestly think he did lose the locker room. Like, it is just really tough to recover from what happened at Detroit that day, right? Like, and it happened in front of the whole world. Everybody saw exactly what took place. Obviously, I'm not going to blame all on Matt Eberflus, but I think that he does deserve a lot of the blame for how that was handled. And then, like, when you go up on your press conference and you say that you handled it correctly, I know that we need to know the context of that entire quote. I feel like just putting that quote out there makes him look like an idiot, and then when you get the context of it, you're like, oh shit, yeah, this guy's kind of an idiot. So I think it's going to be tough for him to recover from that. And obviously the Bears thought the same thing, that it was going to be really tough for Matt Eberflus to recover from those comments and just the way that game ended. And I feel like, that was in this one situation, that was the right move to make. You cannot have him back in that building, because there's no way professional athletes are going to look at him and be like, dude, come on, man. They're not going to take you seriously, because a lot of the players did say they felt like they did enough to win that game. They certainly did. That being said, somebody still has to make that kick, and then you get a tie game, right? It's not like you're going to win on the kick, right? So I'm okay with that move, but it just sucks. And the reason why is, like, I said this, going into the year. If you're going to fire, like, if you didn't think that you were going to keep him for an extended period of time, you probably should have let him go in the offseason, because now you've created this thing around Caleb where now Caleb has to go through another regime change in his second year. And every time we've seen that with young quarterbacks, it's like it just prolongs their process of growth. When you can bring in a quarterback in a stable organization that has leadership from top down, it always bodes well. This isn't a secret. Right, everybody kind of understands that. It's just like the Bears make these decisions too many times, and we feel like, because of now that, we've seen some glimpses of the talent that Caleb does have, now we're going to give him another, regime change and this, and then when it doesn't work out well next year, it's just gonna, like, oh, it was the first year of the head coach. Now we'll see. It just prolongs the process of, success. It just does, dude. Just look at the Chargers, right? You didn't have the right head coach in place for Justin Herbert. You get him. You go through the turmoils. You go through the losses, this, that, and the other. And now you finally get a head coach that can build you a winning franchise. And it just prolonged it probably an extra 2 years. I think Herbie has been ready to win for, the last 2 years. They've had a team that's been ready to win for the last 2 years, and they just haven't. So, I just think when you have a rookie quarterback, like, there has to be stability from top down. You have to give them the time and place to do it, and to develop and grow. But again, they just don't have that, and I feel like you're just going to struggle, and the time period of development just gets a little bit longer in Chicago, which, again, nobody's surprised by. It is the Chicago Bears. Let's not forget, it is the Bears that we are talking about. This is a franchise that hasn't made two correct moves in a row in a long, long time. So we'll see what they are. Now, if we look at the New York Giants, right, and what they did with Daniel Jones, like, didn't love how Danny Dimes really handled that. I just don't think that you can ask to be released from that situation. I think that you have to put the onus on them and their decision making to do that for you. I just don't think that was the right way to handle it after the trust that they've put into you and the money that they've given you and the compensation. I just don't think that you can turn around and be like, yo, if you're not going to, stand by me now, just release me. Again, as as somebody that's seen the entire Giant situation for a long time, we understand that that was going to happen. But like releasing him after week 11 in the NFL, it just like kind of screams amateur. It just screams amateur. It just feels like this is a franchise that's not serious. It's just not a serious enough place to win, and they have struggles in everything that they do. And I feel bad for a lot of the players that play there because I don't love their head coach. I think Brian Daboll is, he's a great play caller. He may be a great offensive mind, but like as a head coach, I haven't loved a lot of the things that he said. And if I was a fan of that team, it's like, come on, man. I want my head coach to like be authentic, but like also be serious about some of these things, man. You can't throw your quarterback under the bus when he messes up. You just can't do that. It's one of those unspoken things, but it's like, we all saw what happened, but it's like you can't do that week in and week out and then like be frustrated and cussing them on the sidelines, and like that whole Giant situation is just terrible, dude. It just is. But again, we'll see what they are going forward. I hope that they, don't get Shador and the Vegas Raiders do. But, hey, Cam Ward looks really good as well. So hopefully that they get a quarterback in there and give the Eagles a run for their money. Now, I'm going to go through, in my opinion, the top 5 teams in each conference. Now, let's start with the NFC. The top 5 teams in the NFC. Let's start at number 5. At number 5 in the NFC. Wow, it's a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be. Because you got, number 5 in the NFC. Okay. So here's the top 5 teams in the NFC, in my opinion. Okay. At number 5, I'm going to go with the Seattle Seahawks. And I know I have said a lot of bad things about the Seattle Seahawks. But look, there's no denying what they've done in the past 3 weeks. There's no denying what the Mike McDonald has done with that defense. That defense has looked a lot better than it did at the start of the year, which we thought it should because they have invested a lot in that defense, including a head coach. Right? Geno is still up and down. We don't love how inconsistent that team is. But if you look at what they have done in just their division, against their division, obviously this week will tell us a lot playing against the Cardinals. But if you just look at what they have done, I think that the Seattle Seahawks are going to be trouble because they're a tough team to game plan against. If you are going up against them in the playoffs, they just are a tough team to game plan against. I think that if it wasn't the Seahawks, it'd probably be the Bucs. And I'm not going to put the Commanders in there because I think the Commanders just still have too many holes. They do, man. And I know people are going to talk about, they just, put up an absurd amount of points against the Titans. Well, like, first of all, it's the Titans. Okay, so let's not make it more than it is. Obviously, they have a great young quarterback who is going to be a star in this league. But I think they still have too many holes on their defense that, Will Levis didn't really capitalize as much on as I think a good quarterback probably could. I'm not saying Will isn't good. He kind of reminds us of Jameis Winston a little bit. But he is an entertaining quarterback. I don't know if he is their future, but we'll see kind of what they have cooking in Tennessee out there. But still, I just feel like the Commanders have a little bit too many holes. But it's either the Seahawks, the Bucs, or the Commanders. I think the Seahawks are a little bit better. I think because they're a tough team to game plan against because you just don't know what they're going to do. I would assume that going forward, they're going to be a more a more balanced team because I feel like still, 12, 13 weeks into the year. Geno still throws the ball way too much. When you have two stud running backs, I feel like, running the ball should probably help them, but they just don't like doing it. I assume that, they will eventually, and they probably should if they want to win late into the year. So I'm going to go with Seattle at number 5. At number 4, here's where it gets tricky, right? At number 4, I'm going to go with the Minnesota Vikings. And the only reason I'm going to put the Minnesota Vikings below the Packers is because the Vikings, as good as they are, right? There are just moments where you feel like, Sam is not going to make that play. And to credit to him, he's made it throughout the year. And I assume that he will continue to make them. I'm a huge fan of Sam Darnold this year. I think that he has played beyond what anybody could have imagined. I think if you watch the Minnesota Vikings play, Sam Darnold, man, he looks like a hell of a quarterback. He makes every throw. He makes every good throw. His drop back is fluid. His command of the offense is fluid. Kevin O'Connell, right, he has done an exceptional job. And speaking about the Minnesota Vikings, there's no way in this offseason you can let him walk. There is no way, right? I get you have a rookie quarterback, but here's what I would do if I was the Minnesota Vikings. I would offer a Sam Darnold a 3-year, 30-some million a year, 35, 40 million a year. He's earned that money now, right? You give him that much money. Look, and I understand that that's a lot of money, but let's also be honest about this. The going market for a quarterback is around $50 to $60 million, right? We'll see what it is next year when, Brock gets paid and some of these other players get paid. But like the going market is around 45 to 55 to $60 million, right? So if you pay him because of, a short-term deal, tell him, yo, this is the best situation for you. This is the best situation for us. You're still on a prove-it deal. Let's hope that what you did this first year with us is not an anomaly. And let J.J. McCarthy sit as long as he can under Sam Darnold. If Sam is the guy, he's young enough, and we'll see what, what you can do with J.J. McCarthy after. But because Sam is young enough, he's shown us a lot of good things. You have to pay him and keep him there. If you let him walk in free agency, there are going to be a lot of teams that are in that market. And you're going to be sorry you lost him. I also think Sam's going to be sorry that he lost, because that is the best situation for him as well. Let's not forget that. Let's not put that out there, right? Let's not say that Sam's going to have the same level of success anywhere else he goes. No, I think that he has to stay with the Kevin O'Connell, that level of, quarterback on quarterback dialogue, right? Kevin O'Connell has played in the league. He's been a quarterback. So I think that has really helped him, and he can scheme better, as well as anybody in the NFL. So I think that match has to stay together for them to have continued success. At number 3, I got the Green Bay Packers. Now look, the Green Bay Packers are the biggest wild card in the NFC, because that team can beat anybody, right? If you look at the construction of that team, they can beat anybody. And I'll be honest, behind probably Jalen Hurts, the most trust I have in a quarterback in the NFC is Jordan Love. He is the ultimate gunslinger, but because he, the last 3 games, he hasn't turned the ball over, he's looked really good. And now that he's fully healthy, that offense, man, because they don't have a number 1 receiver, everybody can get it. Trucker, the tight end Kraft can get it. Everybody is so involved. And Josh Jacobs, man, he is running the ball really, really well. So Matt LaFleur, he's done an exceptional job. I've always been a fan of what Matt has been able to do in Green Bay, but I think this is his best coaching job. And to see the way that Jordan Love runs that offense, yeah, I there's just the level of trust I think that as fans we have in Jordan that I don't know if we have the same in Jared Goff. That being said, I have the Lions at number 2. And the reason why I have the Lions at number 2 and not number 1 is because I think if they lose again, it's it's going to be about Jared Goff. It's not going to be about their how unhealthy their defense is and this, that, and the other. I think it's going to be because Jared cannot make any mistakes going forward. Your team, because of how banged up they are on defense, is not going to be able to recover the same way when you were turning the ball over 5 times against the Texans. Right? I just don't think that that's the case anymore. I think that you have to play a pretty, flawless game. Don't turn the ball over much. And you're always going to give your team a chance because of your offensive line, your weapons on offense, your running game, and your play calling, right? But, they're not number one, even though they have one loss. And the reason why the Philadelphia Eagles are number one in my top 5 teams in the NFC is because the Philadelphia Eagles coming into this year, the expectations was Super Bowl. Now, at no point for me or Philadelphia fans or anybody that actually likes the NFL or watches the NFL thought that was at any point that changed. We didn't listen to any of these individuals talking about Nick Sirianni being this, that, and the other. That coach and that team, all that they've done with him has won. Right, and for us to question his knowledge about football and this, that, again, absurd. He is one of the best head coaches in the National Football League. Now, you may not like his character, this, that, and the other. Give me a damn break. Give me a break, man. The Philadelphia Eagles are built to win. They're built to win now. The expectations for them is to win now, and that has not changed. Right? Like, let's be very clear with what that team is. They have every piece available for them to win. They have a good play caller in Kevin, sorry, I'm blanking on the play caller that they have from Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore as the play caller on offense, Vic Fangio on defense, and, the head coach being the head coach. Like, they have a good team. They have the pieces in place to win. Their defense is playing lights out. And Jalen Carter has been probably the best defensive player in football this year. I know, there's been conversations about TJ and Miles and them going back and forth. Nah, man. Jalen Carter has been really, really good. He's been a game wrecker for the Philadelphia Eagles, especially on their win streak that they've went on. And I think if you're a betting man, you would think that the Philadelphia Eagles are coming out at the NFC. That is a very good team. But again, this was the expectation. So let's not be surprised by the success that they've had now. At no point did I fall off the bandwagon and think that, oh, no, this team, because they got 2 losses aren't going to be, because they were 2-2, they're not going to be good. Come on, man. Come on. Right? And Saquon Barkley has added an element to their game that they didn't really have before. He's the ultimate home run ball. And that offensive line has played really well. And, there was a question with Jason Kelce retiring, how well they're going to do with that center position. Cam Jurgens has been the guy. He's been the guy that was groomed there, and he's played exceptionally well. So the Philadelphia Eagles, in my opinion, are still the best team in the NFC. Now let's move on to the AFC. Right. At number 5 in the AFC, I'm going to go with the Chargers. Now, I know that they haven't proven enough, but I think with the way that they are built, I think J.K. Dobbins being hurt does hinder them. But I think still I would go with the Chargers. I think the Chargers, because of the way that they're able to win and without having to throw the ball as much with Justin Herbert, because they know that when Herbie needs to throw the ball, he will, and he'll be good at it. So right now, the way that they're able to win is from their defense, and I think that travels really well. Jim Harbaugh has made them play a really complete game, and I we love what we've seen from them. So I like the Chargers at number 5. At number 4, I've gone back and forth with this, but I'm gonna go with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now look, y'all can tell me in the comment section how wrong I am about this, that, and the other. But I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, they still have an element to be desired. They have to play a really exceptional game to win by a little. And the reason why I say that is because you just don't know what you're going to get out of their weapons. As good as Russ has been at controlling that offense and Arthur Smith at calling that offense, it just feels like some things are still hard, right? Najee Harris, he is, in some ways, I just feel like when it gets to the nitty gritty of the season, he's still somebody that you can lock up. And I don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball as well as they have in the playoffs. I hope that they do. I want to see them succeed. I'm just not there yet. And I feel like as good as their defense looks on paper, they haven't played well in the middle of the field. They just haven't played that well in the middle of the field. They haven't tackled well in the middle of the field. Their front has done a really good job. I know Highsmith is out, but Herbig has played really well. So, they just haven't played well in the middle of the field, and I'm not sure how that gets better. So, hopefully they can turn that around. I like the Baltimore Ravens a little bit more at number 3. And the reason why I say that is because Lamar Jackson's Lamar Jackson. And I think because when you have a quarterback that's that dynamic, you always have a chance at any point of the game. Whether it's late in game, early in game, at any point in the game, you still have a chance because you have Lamar Jackson. Now, yes, of course, that defense hasn't been good. And we can, talk about all of that. But, everybody has holes in their team. And I feel like it's easier to overcome a hole like the defense than their defensive secondary than it is to overcome an offensive play. And I just feel like the way that Lamar, is going to play now after realizing that against Philadelphia, he should have ran the ball a lot more. I think that, I just trust the Ravens offense with Derrick Henry now a little bit more than I do the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I know that the Steelers definitely have their number, which, if they play in the playoffs, I'm picking the Steelers because I think that Lamar does struggle against that front. He struggles against that Mike Tomlin, play, and just the atmosphere of playing against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I'm going to take the Ravens at number 3. At number 2, I like the Buffalo Bills. Now, the Buffalo Bills, I think they have overcame a lot of things that were said about them earlier in the year, about that, the things that they've lost and, this piece, and this. Look, Josh has been the best quarterback in football. Josh Allen has been unbelievable this year. He has overcome so much. I think he's made every right read. And he just feels like the perfect quarterback for any weather, right? That's the other thing is that when you're playing in Buffalo in late, November, December, January, and when it's cold out and everybody's struggling to get the ball, Josh, because of his arm and he can cut through that wind like nobody else. And I feel like Josh has been very good. I still feel the only reason why they're not number 1 is because I think late, we'll see what they develop into. But I think that not having a true number 1, and I don't know if Amari Cooper is that, I think not having a true number 1 receiver is hard, man. When you need somebody to win consistently in man coverage and press man and this, that, like when you need somebody to consistently win in that, are they going to be able to do it when a team has a week to prepare for you in the playoffs in a winner go home game? I'm not sure yet. And that's why my number 1 team is still the Chiefs. The Chiefs are still the Chiefs, right? Whether it's Black Magic, whether it's Taylor Swift, whether it's this, that, or the other, they found ways to win. And the way that they win, it is tough to overcome, right? It's tough to overcome. And I still think, Big Red and 15, they're not going to beat themselves. You're going to go out and beat them. They're not going to hand you no games, right? Big Red and 15, that you're going to have to go and beat them. And I think if they get the number 1 seed and they keep the number 1 seed, they get that first week bye, and then you have as an AFC, you have to go to Kansas City to beat them. Good luck, because again, they're not gonna get. We can talk about their defense hasn't looked good, this, that, and the other. It's just like they find ways to win. I trust Spag's defense more than any other coordinator in the NFL because I know that they haven't looked great, but he figures it out late. So, top 5 in the NFC. Okay, the Seahawks, the Vikings, the Packers, the Lions, Philadelphia. Okay, top 5 in the AFC. The Chargers, the Steelers, the Ravens, the Bills, and the Kansas City Chiefs. That's our top 5 of each team, of each conference. Going on to Thursday Night Football, I'm going to take the Detroit Lions at home. I know I like the Packers a little bit more, but I think that this is a close game. But I like the Detroit Lions at home. All the things that have been said about them, MCDC is going to have that team ready to play. And that's that. We will catch you next time on another episode of Game On with Muneeb Khan. See you then.